Good morning, faithful listeners. You have tuned in to the P40 Ministries podcast, the one place where you can get a daily explanatory Bible reading to start your day strong. This is your host, Jen, bringing you a brand new episode out of Genesis. Happy Friday, faithful listener. This is your host, Jen, and you are listening to the P40 Ministries podcast this morning. Before I begin, I will do a quick recap to remind everybody where we're at in Scripture. Now, if you didn't listen to Wednesday's podcast episode, definitely go back and listen to it before listening to this one, for sure. This one will not make sense probably to you unless you go back and listen to Wednesdays, but I will do a quick recap just to remind everybody where we're at. So basically, Isaac is about to die. He is going to give his last will and testament to his elder son Esau, who was the firstborn twin. Now, Isaac had two sons, Esau and Jacob. Jacob was the younger born twin. However, Isaac had a favorite son, and that favorite son was Esau, but Rebekah, the mother, had a favorite son also, and that favorite son was Jacob. So Isaac loved Esau, and Rebekah loved Jacob better than the other kid. So this causes a lot of family drama, of course. Now, Rebekah hears her husband Isaac say that he is going to bless Esau before he dies. And Esau goes out and he hunts for his father because this is what Isaac wanted. He loved Esau because Esau could make him all this delicious food. And he was almost like a strong, manly man kind of hunter guy. And Isaac appreciated that about his son Esau. So he loved Esau because of that. So he asks Esau to go out and hunt for him before he gives him the last blessing. And Esau does this. Now, this might have taken several days or several hours for Esau to go out and find this deer that his father wanted to eat. So we don't know how long Esau was gone. But during this time, Rebekah overhears everything that Isaac said to Esau, but she gets mad and wants Jacob to have that blessing. So she is trying to trick her husband by making him believe that Jacob is actually Esau so that Isaac will bless Jacob instead of Esau. So let's start reading verses 18 through 29. I will be reading out of the AMP version this morning. I'm really into the AMP recently, if you haven't noticed. I think I've been doing most of my episodes this week out of the AMP. So let's read verses 18 through 29, but you can read out of whatever version you usually read out of. So make sure to grab your cup of coffee or your cup of tea, and let's go ahead and start reading together. So Jacob went to his father and said, "My father." And Isaac said, "Here I am. Who are you, my son?" Jacob said to his father, "I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done what you told me to do. Now please sit up and eat some of my game, so that you may bless me." Isaac said to his son, "How is it that you have found the game so quickly, my son?" And he said, "Because the Lord your God caused it to come to me." But Isaac wondered and said to Jacob, "Please come close to me, so that I may touch you, my son, and determine if you are really my son Esau or not." So Jacob approached Isaac, and his father touched him and said, "The voice is Jacob's voice, but the hands are hands of Esau." He could not recognize him as Jacob, because his hands were hairy like his brother Esau's hands. So he blessed him. But he said, "Are you really my son Esau?" And Jacob answered, "I am." Then Isaac said, "Bring the food to me, and I will eat some of my son's game, so that I may bless you." He brought it to him, and he ate. And he brought him wine, and he drank. Then his father Isaac said to him, "Please come, my son, and kiss me." So he came and kissed him, and Isaac smelled his clothing and blessed him and said, "The scent of my son Esau is like the aroma of the field which the Lord has blessed. Now may God give you the dew of heaven to water your land, and the fatness, fertility of the earth, and an abundance of grain and new wine. May peoples serve you, and nations bow down to you. Be Lord and master over your brothers, and may your mother's sons bow down to you. May those who curse you be cursed, and may those who bless you be blessed. I left Wednesday's episode on a cliffhanger for you guys. I wasn't going to tell you what was about to happen. But now we find out what actually happens. Jacob deceives his father with the help of Rebekah, his mother. So Rebekah went and cooked some goats into a delicious stew for Isaac to eat. And Isaac loved this venison and this gamey meat. But he can't tell the difference between venison and the goats. So this kind of tells you how old Isaac might be, that he has trouble distinguishing between the two flavors there. I think I said on Wednesday's episode that I don't know what goat meat tastes like, but I am sure it's probably pretty different from venison. I might be wrong on that, though. If anybody knows what goat meat tastes like, message me on Facebook and let me know if it's similar to venison, if you've also had venison. So anyway, Rebekah makes this delicious meal for Isaac, and she gives it to Jacob. But before Jacob goes into the tent to give the meat to his dad, Rebekah takes some of the goat skins, and goats are pretty hairy. Some of them have really coarse hair, and that was probably how Esau, or similar to how Esau felt. The Bible says that Esau was a very hairy kind of man, a very unique looking man. But of course, Jacob was a smooth man. It says that he was smooth all over. So he was pretty much a polar opposite from his brother. So Rebekah makes these gloves out of the goat fur and hide, and she puts them on her son Jacob, so that just in case Isaac touches Jacob, he'll still think that it's Esau he's talking to. And she also puts some of the fur on the smooth of Jacob's neck, just in case Isaac tries to hug his son or kiss him or anything else. And then the last thing Rebekah does is she puts some of Esau's clothes on Jacob. So she stole from Esau and put some of his best clothes on her son Jacob, so that he would feel and smell like Esau as well. Esau was a hunter. He probably smelled a very certain way. And so that smell would have permeated into his clothing. So after this, Jacob goes into his father's tent, and he brings him the food, and he says, "My father." Now you remember that Isaac was old and he couldn't see anything. So Isaac says, "I'm right here, and who are you, my son?" And Jacob says to his father, "I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done what you told me to do. Now please sit up and eat some of this delicious game, so that you may bless me." So he's lying straight to his father's face. He's like, "I am Esau, and I did exactly what you told me to do. I went and I hunted and got some venison for you." But Isaac says to his son, he's really suspicious because he believes it not to be Esau, because Esau's voice was different from Jacob's voice. So Isaac says to Jacob, "So how did you find this deer so quickly?" Because it's probably only been a couple hours at this point. It was extremely unlikely for Esau to go out, find the deer in that amount of time, and then be able to cook it for his father. So Jacob lies once again, and he says, "Well, God, the God that you serve, put the deer in the way for me. So basically, I went out and I found it immediately, and I came home and cooked it for you." But it says in verse 21 that Isaac continues to wonder, because he just doesn't seem like any of this is making any sense. Isaac wonders and says to Jacob, "Come over here, come close to me, so that I may touch you and figure out if you're actually Esau or not." So he's saying clearly, "I don't believe that you're Esau. Come over here. I'm going to touch you and make sure that you're not that other son, Jacob." So that's what Jacob does. He comes over to his father, who is blind, and Isaac puts his hand on Jacob's. But Jacob is now all hairy because of that goat skin that he has on him. So Isaac feels that goat skin, and he's like, "Oh, well, that feels a lot like Esau's hand. So maybe this is Esau." And he says, either to himself or out loud, I don't know, but he says, "The voice is the voice of Jacob, but the hands are the hands of Esau." So he's still kind of confused here. And he couldn't recognize him, because his hands were all hairy like his brother Esau's hands. So then he says to Jacob, "Are you really my son Esau?" And Jacob says, I am. So Jacob is living up to his name. You remember that Jacob actually means deceiver. So he is lying and deceiving his father and making Isaac believe that he is somebody who he's not. And Isaac is falling for it. And so he says, okay, I believe you now. So bring me that food and I will eat some of the game that you made for me. And then after that, I will bless you. So Jacob brings him the food and Isaac eats and Isaac drinks all the wine. And pretty soon he is getting convinced. We don't know how much wine he drank, but perhaps he drank enough that he started truly believing that Jacob was in fact Esau. So in verse 26, it says, Isaac says to Jacob, please come over here, my son, and I will kiss you. And this is Isaac's last test to make sure that Jacob is in fact Esau, or he believes that this is Esau. He wants to make sure. So Jacob comes over and he kisses Isaac. And I'm sure Isaac felt the hair on Jacob's neck and also thought that it was Esau. But then Isaac also smells Jacob's stinky clothes that actually belong to Esau. And finally, Isaac is convinced. He believes that this is Esau. So he says, the scent of my son Esau is like the aroma of a field which the Lord has blessed. And he goes on to bless Jacob rather than Esau. And he says, now may God give you the dew of heaven to water your land, and the fatness and fertility of the earth, and an abundance of grain and new wine. So Isaac, who is blessed by God, is asking God to give Jacob an abundance of crops, land, and good fortune and wealth. He's asking God to give Jacob these things rather than Esau. And he goes on to say, may peoples serve you and nations bow down to you. May you be the Lord and master over your brothers, and may your mother's sons bow down to you. May those who curse you be cursed, and may those who bless you be blessed. And this is pretty much the same promise that God had given Abraham. God had said to Abraham, may those who curse you be cursed, and may those who bless you be blessed. So Isaac is saying the same promise to Jacob that God gave to Abraham, and he's saying this to Jacob rather than Esau. But of course, Isaac had no clue that he was giving these blessings to Jacob rather than Esau, and he's in for a big surprise now, isn't he? So we will finish up this chapter on Monday. Make sure to join in at 6 a.m. Monday morning to finish up this chapter. Now, of course, on Tuesdays and Thursdays, for those of you who are newer to the podcast, I do a New Testament episode on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and that is also at 6 a.m. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, I do an Old Testament episode, and I go in order all the way up to Malachi. Now, friends, I'm going to ask that you go to my Facebook page, facebook.com/P40ministries, and I encourage you to like the page because I do a lot of updates on Facebook. It's a way for you to stay tuned with everything that's happening with both the podcast and the website. Now, as always, make sure to rate this episode as 5 stars from wherever you're listening from. That will help other people find the podcast, of course. The more good ratings I get, the higher up I appear in searches. So I definitely encourage you, if you liked the podcast episode, to rate it 5 stars. Friends, thank you so much for tuning in. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Happy listening, and God bless.